Hello and welcome to Patrick's Models and Transports. Today's video is dedicated to the 030T Boer or Class 3500 tank engines of, in this case, their main operator was ETAT, but these locomotives were developed by, in 1885 and then put in production between 1888 and 1898 by Ouest, the West lines, or Compagnie de Chemin de Fer de l'Ouest. I hope my French was not too bad. The Western Railways Company in France, which operated between 1855 and 1909. On the 1st of January 1909, it was nationalized as the Administration de Chemin de Fer de l'État, or as normally known as ETAT lines in English, the administration of state railways, the very first French state-owned railway enterprise. As we know, in 1938, ETAT lines and the other French private railway companies, like the one who went to the south, which was the Paris-Lyon, and so on, were all nationalized under the SNCF, the French state railways, which are still the current operator of railways in France. This class of locomotives were developed by Ouest, as I said, class 3500, and then became the 030T under, or class 13173 under ETAT, and I think 030T under SNCF, if I don't remember badly. They were developed as suburban train locomotives. They have a particular British design. In fact, they were also known as the English locomotives of Paris, or British locomotives of Paris. Very often, the French don't really distinguish between English and British. We know, being British, I'm half Scottish, there is a distinction between being British and English, of course, but many people, especially in the European continent, do a little bit of confusion. Well, that's just internal British differences. Okay, so I generally, when I talk about industrial products, I stick to the term British, because very often locomotives in Great Britain were actually not made in England. Some things were made in Scotland. In Glasgow, where I'm from, there was North British Locomotive Company, big manufacturer of steam engines. So apart from local, I'm going off the beaten track right now, excuse me. Okay, so they were developed as suburban trains for the suburban lines of Paris, the banlieue. Banlieue in French means suburbs. And for the Petit Ceinture, which was the small railway belt or railway link that connected the Paris suburbs to the centre of Paris. In fact, these trains also went to the Champs-Élysées station, which served the area of the International Exhibition of 1889, when the Tour Eiffel was built, and lines which have currently been abandoned. Excuse me, the cold is not going away. So these locomotives were they represent, together with the double-decker carriages that we see over there, the typical suburban trains of the Belle Epoque, the period, the beautiful period, which went from the end, let's say, from the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, a long period of peace, until 1914, August 1914, when the Great War began, and then everything changed forever. They were developed for local trains, for suburban trains, so heavy trains. Information on these locomotives in English is quite scarce. I found some interesting websites in French, some even with some parts in English, and I'll add the links in the description box. On one of them, one of the French ones, really very detailed with all the technical drawings. There's even some very interesting footage of 1920 of the British Pathe Gazette on the rail strike in Paris, big rail strike in France, with one of these suburban trains with the double-decker carriages, single-decker carriages, a very long train, pulled by one of the Boer, 030T Boers, out of one of the Paris stations, loaded with people on the roofs, on the footplates, and so it's a proof that these were very, very powerful little engines. they were kept small because of the type of turntables that were available on the suburban lines. So it's a 030, oh, sorry, that's Continental, an 060 tank engine with two simple expansion internal cylinders, and a maximum speed of 80 kilometers per hour, a power of 338 kilowatts, and tractive effort of 90 kilonewtons, and a weight of 40 metric tons. They were in service between 1885, when they were designed, 85, 88. There are two different subclasses of locomotives, a Mark I and a Mark II. 135 that we can see here is a Mark II that was made by Jouef. And they remained in service. Of course, then they were cascaded to other duties after more powerful locomotives were introduced after the Great War on the Paris suburban lines, and then the Paris suburban lines were also electrified, and they were cascaded to other duties, local trains, shunting, small goods trains, in particular in the western areas of France, Brittany, and so on. They remained in service until 1961, so a very, very long career. A very long career, bordering on 80 years of service, above more than 70 years of service for these locomotives. Proof of their excellence. We have the nickname, Boer. How come there's this nickname? All locomotives received nicknames at the time, and even nowadays this is a practice which is quite common. Maybe official names, nicknames, and the like. They received the nickname Boer because these locomotives entered service during the Boer Wars in South Africa, in the Cape, that saw the Boer, the Afrikaner, the Boers, confronting the British Empire. We have to remember that France at the time was an antagonist of Great Britain in the control of Africa, in the colonial expansion in Africa, and anyway France had a long history of conflicts with England and then Britain after the Act of Union of 1707, still mentioning Britain and England, and Scotland. Scotland, incidentally, was an old ally of France, so there was the Old Alliance, a sort of anti-English alliance. I'm wandering away into history on this video, I apologise. But the thing is, everything's connected, like a train. And there was, the French public had sympathy for the cause of the Boers. Why? Because, first of all, they saw them as antagonists of the British imperial might, and the French hadn't forgotten that they'd been beaten in the Napoleonic Wars. And then the Boers were a republic, the Transvaal Republic, and France was also a republic, and so the republican spirit made people appreciate the Boer fighters. And so these little, stocky, but powerful locomotives were nicknamed Boer. And I think I've rounded everything up on the actual real locomotive. We'll now talk about the model. If I manage to get through this video without choking. I should have had a glass of water, but I don't have one handy. So the 030T model was introduced by Jouef in 1979. So we're firmly in the model train era of Jouef. But it's a model train which is still a good, tough little toy train as well. So we can see here, it's very well detailed. This is an example which is stock out of the box. I bought the second hand last year, and it was absolutely in mint condition. The only thing I had to do was to lubricate the motor bearings, remove the old grease that had gunked up, and the pickups and axles. You can refer to the previous maintenance video to see how these are made inside. Then beside it we see another identical locomotive that has instead been customized by a previous owner. We can see that sandpipes have been added from the sanding box to the wheels, extra handrails, and this side here we have a pull cord for the bell. The axles have been burnished, and even the wheels, the space between the spokes has been painted grey like the chassis, so you have the illusion that this has actually got see-through spoked wheels, as it should have. In reality, on the original model, they're just painted black. French steam locomotives generally always had black painted wheels, unlike that 1925 with the red ones. And we'll get to that in a second. So this model entered production in 1979, initially with a very rowdy and noisy 3-pole motor, and then a 5-pole motor was introduced. We have a very simple inclined motor and the worm drive and the drive gear on the rear axle with traction tyres. It's quite a lightweight locomotive, but it has a very good pulling power. It has a metal weight here in the smoke box that presses down on the front axles, so we have traction tyres here, but here we have the pickups on the front 2 axles, so it's very, very important to have good contact. And the whole locomotive picks up very well, very good puller, absolutely, very good locomotive. And so you can even do some good shunting with these. This one here has had, whoever modified it, cut the front coupling hook off for realism. This locomotive tends to be a little bit noisy in reverse because it's been used to always going forward. So this one here, you can see, has its original coupling hook at the front. Of these 3 locomotives in my possession, these 2, the black ones, have got 5-pole motors, which makes them very smooth running and quiet. This one has got a noisy 3-pole motor, but we'll see that in the running. Let's talk about this red locomotive. Of course, this red locomotive never existed in reality. Boer O30T locomotives were never red. This is a sort of special edition made by Jouef in 1981, where the locomotive was completely red, with a very, very plasticky look, with a golden chimney and dome, and I don't really know why they did it, and there's number 1925 at the side, and red, of course, red wheels. When I bought this, it was in very bad condition. The paintwork had been heavily played with, so I decided to, I liked the lining here, and you can see the riveting and the lining. It looked nice, so I decided to reinterpret this as an industrial locomotive. I looked at pictures, so I kept the red on the side of the smoke box, on the side of the bunker, and I painted everything else black in modelling paint. You can see some red shining through here, but I'm not touching that up for the moment. It looks like red lead, and I painted it with Vallejo modelling paint. Matte, brush painted, properly diluted. You don't see any brush strokes on there. And this was the very first O30T Boer I bought. I had considered repainting it completely black and making it into a sort of Italian tank engine, but Italian tank engines were all with external cylinders, and I just like it. It's an industrial locomotive. These locomotives were also cascaded to industry, so it's good to have a sort of fictional industrial locomotive, which could be locomotive 1925, number 2, we can put whatever we want. Okay, so I think that's enough chatting for the moment. We'll just get the... yes, one thing about the Boer Wars, they were fought between 1880 and 1881, the first one, and then 1899 and 1902, the second one. So right in the years of service when these locomotives were introduced and designed. So now I think that's enough chatting for the moment, and we'll let the locomotive speak. Here we'll begin with the one that's stock out of the box in brand new condition, and we can hear how quiet it is. 5-pole motor is very silent. Just a bit of growling at low speed, very controllable. We'll stop there, and I think we'll just go forward now. Very controllable at low speed. Has a bit of growling from the gears at low speed, but we can put it up. Very quiet, very controllable. This has got a 5-pole motor. We're going to send it to collect a reek of suburban coaches. So So now we'll just have to get up and change the points, because I don't have electrified points on this board. Let's see if it wants to. So prototypically we have 4 double-decker carriages, a luggage van and brake van at the back. Normally they would have always put a first and second class carriage here at the front between the locomotive and the first double-decker carriage, mainly to not, you know, have a bit of distance between the people on the top deck and the chimney. But we haven't got one. I've not managed to buy one yet, so I could, just for reasons of to make it a little bit more realistic, we'll use a Deutsche Reichsbahn, very similar locomotive with doors at the side and a footplate, and we'll just pretend, we'll just pretend this is a ETAT locomotive. Let's see if it's going on. Okay, it's on. So let's see if we can couple up. Slightly different heights. Let's just help it. Helping hand will do the job. Okay, right. Oh, the signalman left the points open, and this is where there's the insulator, because these sidings are on a different controller. It's clumsiness for us. Okay, so as we were saying before, prototypically on these trains, I've looked at lots of photographs. There would have been 1 or 2 single deck carriages at the front, which were first and second mixed class carriages, followed by the double-decker carriages and maybe another couple of low deck. It could actually be quite long trains, and then with usually the brake van and luggage van and brake van at the back. But I still have to I'm after one of these. I've spotted one on internet. I'm waiting for the price to go down a little bit. And okay, so we'll use a German carriage in its place, Deutsche Reichsbahn. We could even think that we're immediately after the Great War, and the Germans have had to hand over some war reparation rolling stock. Of course, it wouldn't have been branded Deutsche Reichsbahn then, but let's forget about that DR now. It's very similar. Footplate and doors. That's a Pico carriage. The other carriages are all Jouef. We're at under 50% speed. Lovely locomotive to drive. In this case, we can see these carriages are very well made, and the 1, 2, 3, 4. This fourth one here, I bought it very cheap because it was in very bad condition. It had broken, the handrails are all gone, these rails were disappeared, so I rebuilt everything using copper wire and glue and glaze glue, PV glue, to glue the copper wire together to make the banisters and handrails of the stairs. This as well, and then I painted everything. I rebuilt. It's a little bit bent. It was really very damaged. I rebuilt the footplate, the footplate in styrene, 0.75 styrene, and I say on the whole, it's a good repair. Maybe a more in service, a bit more battered look. It's not pristine out of the box, and the result is actually quite nice and quite pleasing. So we'll now continue with this train and maybe speed it up a bit. These at the maximum speed of about 80 kilometers an hour, so we're going a little bit above 50. We're going at quite a realistic speed. Imagine that trundling along with people on the top deck. Top deck was for smokers, you were out of the elements. These double-decker carriages were then phased out in the 1930s because they were really dangerous. It was very, very easy to fall off. Right, we're going to pull in at the station now. Reverse, let's open the points. And we're going to just go into the siding. Very controllable. Okay, perfect. I think this one here is a bit in the road. This is coming out, so we'll just uncouple this in a very barbaric way and get rid of it and put it here. Okay, you go there. Okay, perfect, very well. Okay. We'll just put this onto the siding, and that's it on the insulated siding, and that's us out of the road. So now we'll have a quick look also at the other 5-pole motor, the rebuilt or the improved locomotive. We'll just put it here. These locomotives were also used for small short goods trains. This was we can see that. Are we starting? We're going the wrong way. This is a bit noisier. Oops. Yeah, sometimes you have to give this locomotive here has been used a lot. I greased it, I did lubrication. You need to always have a little bit more power on the controller to get it over points and things, but when it starts running, there we go, it's getting stuck because there's a plastic frog there. Let's just give it a... we're not collaborating at all today. Why? Why? There's a video going. Come on, boy. It's not co-op. Right, we're just going to go. Okay. Why not? You're working well before. What's going on? Why are you not wanting to work? No idea why you're not wanting to work. I serviced you yesterday, everything was okay. Oh, what's happening? Okay, we're having a technical hitch right now for some we don't really understand why. There we go. It's feeling the weather. Now this locomotive here has got it's not really got a worn engine, but it's being used a lot, and sometimes it needs a little bit of I've cleaned the wheels, I've lubricated the axles, I've put technical petroleum jelly on the axles, and it wants to be tickled to work. So let's do everything from the beginning, and we'll just couple it up. These locomotives were also used for for goods trains, for small goods trains, so we can connect it to a coal train, a short coal train, and on we go. Okay, short coal train, right up. And once it's going and going, it's okay. Let's hope we're not going to see it. This locomotive is a bit temperamental because of its old age, but it's a good locomotive, and I really like the customized look, the improved look. Yeah, once it's going, it's happy. You have to give it a bit more juice in the controller. That's a proof that the motor's more worn out. I've never really opened the motor here on this locomotive. I'm planning to do so. Maybe I should give the commutator a clean. I've never opened a Jouef motor. I've got a spare one I'm going to maybe do a tutorial video on, but the axle boxes are very worn on this locomotive. It's must have been a very loved and very used locomotive. It's still a very good puller. Okay, so in the meantime, while this locomotive with the coal train is going round, we'll have a look at the red locomotive. And, oh, oopsie daisy, and you can see that this one's much faster, at the same speed. We'd better slow everybody down because otherwise we're going to have a train crash. I had left this locomotive on the... where are you going? A runaway locomotive. Just take this and put it there, right out the road. It's good fun playing trains. So let's get this locomotive going. Coal train. Coal train is, you can see, identical locomotives. They're absolutely identical. Same motor, same everything. Only that this one is brand new, so the motor is brand new, all the axles, everything's in mint condition. This locomotive's motor has got a lot, probably it's been used a lot, lots of operating hours, and it's also been running a lot, so worn out axle boxes, the motor bearing is there's more slack, and so the same identical locomotive with the same voltage, the same power, this goes much faster than that one. And it's not a matter of the train, because even if I uncoupled them, in fact, let's just do a test. We'll just do a speed test, and we'll just set the controller at, we're at 50. You can see how the new loco is much faster at 50 than the older one, which has a much bigger mileage, let's say, mileage in scale. In fact, now, as we go along in reverse, you can hear that this one also has this clicking in reverse, which I have not managed to solve. I have no idea why it continues clicking, but it's a matter, it does click. I know what the problem is. The motor bearings are worn out, and so the rotor tends to move about in its seating. Instead, here it's nice and tight. So, of course, in reverse, it changes. The worm drive is going in a different direction. And if you run this here, just the chassis, you see how the motor rotor is in a different position when it's going in reverse, and it tends to cause a clicking. So now we can put this one here beside the house, and we can just go back and run this locomotive here with the coal train, at least for the moment, and that will just run along. It needs a bit more power on the controller. We'll give it a good 60%, and that can trundle along happily. So in the meantime, while that's going, we're going to have see the red 1925. we can see that it's much noisier because this has a 3-pole motor. It's picked up a coal wagon, it's a ballast wagon, and now we're going to send it towards the main line. Oops. It's also not so controllable. It's here in front of the station. It's a much rougher running locomotive. What I was wanting to do was I'm going to stop another lap of the coal train, and then we'll put the coal train away. Once it's started, it picks up well and it begins running properly. Let's just put the coal train in the siding. Okay, we'll take this here, and because it's still on and we'll just park it over here on the siding. And I think we'll just do a very simple operation now. We'll do a running session of the red locomotive, the 3-pole motor, I would say even on its own. And then it could pick up this train. It could pick up the, or we could give it a short goods train. Let's see. Let's decide what we're going to do. So 5-pole, brand new, very quiet, super smooth running. 5-pole, very used, not so smooth running because of wear and tear. More tired motor, tends to require to draw more current, to need more current to perform. But on the whole, relatively quiet. And in fact, we can just listen to it again. We're on the controller. It's nice and it's still nice. It's still smooth. It's still quiet. See, now it's been running, it's sort of there. There, it decided that it wanted to, it didn't like not working at the beginning, so it was a bit ashamed, and now it's working properly. So now let's have a look at the red one with the 3-pole motor. This is a noisy locomotive. And there's nothing doing. I've lubricated it. I've done all sorts of things. I've turned it inside down. This is a noisy motor. In fact, one of the comments that people used to say about these 3-pole Jouef motors, they were complaining about their terrible, terrible noise. But once you couple it up with a noisy goods train, you hear it less. Which is what we're doing right now. Okay. It tends to get, you have to give yourself a bit of momentum here because with these locomotives, because of the plastic frogs on the points. Let's give it a sort of kickstart. Alright, it would help if things had, my mistake, sorry. I didn't set the points. These ones were, disaster. Disaster strikes. Let's see if maybe things are going to go now. Okay. It's really noisy and growly, and this is because of it being a 3-pole motor. It's lubricated, it's greased, the worm gear is greased, the drive gear is correct, The motor bearings have been lubricated, but this is just a noisy locomotive. And it's not, now we're running at 50% speed, it's not as controllable as at low speed. There's a bit more cogging going on, but on the whole, on a good controller, it's a controllable locomotive. Now we're at sort of 30% now. But it's really, really noisy. Okay, we're going to take this one off the rails. We're just going to bring it directly into the station. I'll say why, just for fun. So that's at 50%. We can pop this one here as in the right direction at about 50%, maybe even less because that's a slightly faster controller. We'll go and move the points to there and there. And now everything should be correct. It will move from that controller to that controller to that controller. I'm getting ready to slow it down. Okay, so for some reason we've decided to deliver the coal to the main station and not to the goods yard. Okay, so I would say we can call it a day now. We've finished the video. Maybe we could finish up with a lap of honor with our, let's just put it over here. Oops, helps if you switch your controller off, not leaving things connected. We'll just do a lap of honor with the black new one in, let's just go to the far end. It's fantastic how this locomotive is. Just let this here quietly go to collect its train. Okay, it's going to collect a completely different train and some reverse pulling. Close those points. Oh, I didn't want to bring it into the siding, but a bit of shunting isn't a bad idea. Here we have a train formed by 4 Kleinbahn coaches and a Pico brake coach. Let's go back out onto the main line. You can see how controllable this is. For shunting, it's really, really a pleasure. I'm going to have to do some shunting videos as well in future. That's a usual problem. Tank engines on NCO frogs. Okay, you have to be going a little bit faster, but okay. And so now final lap with bunker forward running. It's a little bit noisier when going in reverse, and that's to do with the motor bearings, as usual, the design of the motor. But very well. So there we are. It's a bit of a slow down here on the points. Let's give it a little bit more. The two brown Kleinbahn carriages have got plastic wheels. One was actually missing. It was too small, and I swapped it with a Lima set of wheels. I'd like to get metal wheels for those two brown carriages, because the green ones have got very, very good quality metal wheels. So as this final train goes around the track, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was I didn't waffle too much. I didn't go off the beaten track. And if you like the video, of course you can give us a like. If you're interested in the channel and what's happening, you can subscribe to the channel, and of course click the notification bell to be kept up to date on what's going on here. So he's going along, and I think we'll finish and zoom on our friend, the customized locomotive. Right, it's cheerio, and see you next time.